How social justice turned me into a liar in 7 steps. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and here is my personal journey of how social justice turned me into a liar. First, I learned that my favorite cousin growing up, who I always knew to be female, was now identifying as a non binary male. I asked her whether or not she was taking testosterone or if she was planning on getting surgeries, and she got upset and told me that her transition was none of my business, even though she had already posted a Facebook status update announcing it to the world, along with a personal pronoun change to either he, him, or they, theirs. In the comment thread, I asked why I should consider my cousin male and non-binary, and my cousin told me that gender is a social construct. This was strange to me because I am male and have always been into video games, sports, and action movies, and my cousin had always been into dress-up, dance classes, and romantic comedies. But I decided to go along with it because I had always liked my cousin a lot, and I didn't want to upset her. Sorry, him, or them, whatever, moving on. Step 2 happened in the very same comment thread, which was when a black friend of theirs said to them, "Your cousin sounds racist as fuck." Since what we were talking about obviously didn't have anything to do with racism, I thought it was rather strange that this friend would say such a thing. So I asked what it was all about, and assured them that I wasn't racist and have numerous friends who are racial minorities. This response was not greeted well, as I was told that just because I have a few black friends doesn't mean I am not racist, and saying so as if it would absolve me from guilt meant I obviously must be completely compliant in the system of racism that benefits me as an individual white person at the expense of all racial minorities. Or people of color, as they put it, which sounded pretty racist to me, but I ignored it. I was told that I was racist because all white people are racist, and that I was even more racist if I would not simply admit to that in order to grow and move forward. I didn't think that sounded like a very good idea, and in fact, I said I felt like it was racist to assume my character based on the color of my skin. But it was then explained to me that it is impossible to be racist against me as a white person, because racism is a system of genocide and slavery set up by white people to keep me on top and racial minorities on bottom, and that no matter how hard I try, I would be complacent in this system unless I did everything in my life that is possible to fight against this system. So even if I personally was completely unaware of my own racism, it was being perpetuated through me by way of my own complacency within this system. So I learned that, supposedly, the most non-racist thing for me to do would be to constantly focus on seeing the world through this new lens of undoing racism, which oddly demanded of me that I become extremely preoccupied with people's skin colors at all times. But, well, I decided that that was okay with me. The third step I took towards becoming a liar was when one of my cousin's friends later told me that I was taking up too much space in the conversation on her Facebook timeline, and that it was obviously an extension of my patriarchal male privilege for me to assume that women of color be demanded to educate me. It sounded kind of sexist to me that they assumed my line of questioning was unique to me being male. But when I mentioned that, they told me that it was also impossible to be sexist against men. This struck me as especially odd because, unlike white people who I had learned cannot suffer from racism, men are not even a majority. However, they explained to me that men hold all of the power in the world under the unifying force of patriarchy, on account of men being in the majority of top positions in politics, companies, and corporations, and men use that power, which is unified by an invisible but omnipotent system called patriarchy, to oppress every woman on the planet. I mentioned that perhaps it was sexist to assume that every rich man's wife is being horribly exploited by her husband and that she has no personal agency, and I also brought up the notion that gender is just a social construct anyway, so this was getting rather confusing in various ways. However, step 4 came when I was told that I needed to shut up and listen to women of color because my cousin's friends' lived experiences of oppression gave her an inherent understanding of society that I would not understand as a white male. Of course, I didn't feel like it was impossible for me to understand things on account of me being white and male, but I still wanted my cousin and her friends, their friends, to like me, so I played along. I meditated about the idea that I wasn't allowed to have an opinion for a while and decided to do some research. Then step 5 came around when I decided to research into patriarchal societies, which led me to studying Islamic governments, because those seem to be most patriarchal of all. I posted a comment on my cousin's timeline about Islam and what her feelings were about it, but she appeared to be away from the computer. However, one of her friends saw my post and told me that Islam was an extremely feminist religion if you were a true follower of the Quran, and that, again, I should educate myself about it before I ask people to expend emotional labor on the internet clarifying things to me as a white male. I almost finished writing out a reply, but before I did, an ex-Muslim black trans woman began arguing with the woman who posted the comment under my post, claiming that the commentator must not actually know anything about Islam if she would say such things. You see, she was a black trans ex-Muslim, and she could assure the other woman that it was patriarchal and an oppressive ideology. These two bickered for a while, and then step 6 began when the ex-Muslim said that she would not vote for Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton had accepted so much money from Islamic governments like Saudi Arabia, where she would be killed for being transgender. The other woman said in response that Hillary Clinton was our only option because Donald Trump, her opponent, was literally Hitler. This went on for a while, until finally my cousin came back and blocked her black trans ex-Muslim friend and accused her of being a Nazi sympathizer because she was not doing everything she could to defeat Trump. I decided not to say anything. Finally, after Trump was elected and I knew it was my role to follow the orders of my cousin and her friends or I would be disowned or attacked myself, even though I had so many reservations about the logic of all of this stuff that they had been telling me, my cousin posted on Facebook about how a gay man named Milo Yiannopoulos was speaking at Berkeley, which was close enough for us to attend the protest together. My cousin explained to me that he was a fascist, and though I asked what types of fascist rhetoric he preached, my cousin said, again, that I should go educate myself. And so I did. I watched numerous lectures from Milo Yiannopoulos and never once found him saying anything anti-Semitic, asking for genocide, claiming white people to be inherently superior to other races, advocating against freedom of speech, or anything I normally considered to be related to fascism. He did, however, claim that gender is not a social construct, which I had already decided to be untrue. He also said that it is possible to be bigoted and maybe even racist and sexist against white men, which I had also decided to be untrue. He also said that Islam was a threat to the West, which I was still unsure about because I had heard conflicting things from different feminists, and it was supposed to be my job to shut up and listen. However, eventually, my cousin introduced me to a woman named Yvette Filarca, who was helping organize the protests about Milo, and she was a woman of color who told me that it was perfectly acceptable to use physical force to shut down his speaking engagement at Berkeley. So that settled that. I was not sure whether or not I agreed with that notion, but I knew not to question women of color, and she was fairly convinced that he was a fascist, so I ended up throwing rocks through a few windows and helping pull back a police barricade so that other protesters could storm the building and attack people who had come to see Milo speak. I knew that I was doing something wrong, but I also felt that I was doing the right thing. But most importantly, at this point, while I cannot confidently say that there will be no negative repercussions for my actions, because I have done stuff that is illegal at this point and still haven't sorted out all of the details of what I feel about each individual argument, I do know that I will be on the right side of history. That's all I have for today. Drop Prince of Queens a comment, help him out on Patreon if you think he's cool, and stay tuned.